drugs, paraphernalia, and you could categorize. You could say, I don't want drugs. I don't want to see drugs. I want to see retail stuff. But if you were buying ecstasy or cocaine or any of these drugs, they were all there for the buying. Even go further, you could buy a fake license,
but
any fake passport.
You were on Curaçao, right?
Yes.
Around the time.
Yes.
Is it possible to buy things from the dark web?
Yes,
Curaçao?
that's what.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, so I'm in there. This is eBay because I bought stuff on eBay. So how do you do it on eBay? How do you do it on Amazon back then?
Alright, welcome back na Wapu Podcast, po Business Educational Podcast na papiamento. Conta.
Me gusta que botar o podcast, já me tem a chance de dar uns logo distribuir.
Sei não, divi também. Vai dar uns logo também. Sei tá uno. Quando eu passando tu coisa bom, aruba bonaire. Ei, você aqui quando 5 assim, awa aqui que botar aqui no episode. Diz comment about die onda. Foi onda wat wist tawagnos. For the Itália, dat die guy last ko abisa nos ko tawagnos for the Czech Republic.
Sério?
Ah, sei.
No, I go the YouTube comments?
No. Liba DM.
Do check
Instagram.
It.
Master. De saludo po vos nanda também. Espero tu coisa bom. Quando é que gym? Já domingo vai gym.
No, me vai.
Passou gym tá será, bota lá, bota vai gym.
Vamos começar o gym?
Pabo. Já domingo tá será, pense minuto vai já domingo.
Não, bom gym. Bom gym tá será domingo.
Marabo.
Geval, agora check
Yes.
Bo discount code riba manscape.com, caminho botar tudo produto nandi. Bo feita é área. Tu local que quer de área de caminho meter cerveja e não chega aí bom
Área de currency.
área de currency em ieder geval uso bo desconto code Wapu de 20% de desconto anto que mais usar para disclaimer não
Disclaimer. Bebimento tá para muito grande, 18 plus. Muito muito chiquinho, no bebe. Quanto você toma?
se eu bebe responsável
Exato. E importante, para mim que nós começar, subscribe e bono. Tem botão na boman Rex, cara, subscribe, abonar. Então, abonar alfaz. É mais, vamos guardar o rato, não? Vamos guardar o rato. 5 segundos, abonar aí, não.
não só na awkwardly okay
Certo?
alright
Abonar. Bom, não sei bem. Agora nós temos 2 caballeros. O da...
okay
Hope interessante. Topic tá hope interessante.
basically nosso baita assim tá as an extra aqui na anto
Certo. Nossa public.
nosso público. O goal de episode aqui está no William Santiago, qual é um expert em cryptocurrencies e tem background em IT e de bank world. Então nós temos Edirel Susanna, qual é professor na Universidade de Curaçao, qual
Me tem divisa assim, Alfaz, Susana, safe comentário na de Real Madrid para mim. Tu rende sabe que passa, para bem. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead with the topic,
Thank
please.
toma.
Hala Madrid.
Bon, guys, welcome, Alfaz. I want to say papi over the cryptocurrency, fiat, money on paper, gold, whatever.
That's right.
It's about, it's related to currency. So, guys, welcome.
Thank you.
We were just talking in the living room for what?
About an hour, I think.
Yeah.
So just introduce yourself, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Edirel Susanna. As Boris abisa orati ku um professor na Universidade de Curaçao. Mi área de focus está finance, investments, financial literacy. Mito de Curaçao originalmente, mabai Maria Immaculata, Lyceum, como high school, ora macaba mabai estudia na América, na América, mas vivo na América 16 anos, 11 anos passamos em Curaçao back. Ante processo é uma decidi que o próximo step de minha career tá para na last.
E como Curaçao back?
Partly família. Mama com tata tá ainda aqui na minha casada americano. Nós tem, nós temos 2 jogos, nós temos 3. Sempre a ideia tá para vir back. Família que não tá mais grande. I mean, honestly, me no quero be sort of back. Me no tá very open to the idea, pero me quero after 11 years looking back, me quero não make the right choice. Pero maneira me visto meu background de investments. Na América me trabalha para uma companhia bastante grande, die mutual fund companies na mas grande in Amerika, die investment firms na mas grande in Amerika, kuta the Vanguard Group.
Nice.
Aí maioria position ko minha hold tava mas tanto den advising pa retirement plans, 401k plans, pension plans. E mais algum parte de training também. Te quer aspecto de training como hasi de mi 8 9 anos na Vanguard. Tava um impulso para vir Curaçao back e dentro do mundo acadêmico. Então agora que me tá treinando em meu PhD, minha área tá financial literacy.
Dus back no same about doctor.
Sim, doctor.
Doctor.
Hopefully soon.
No, but you say like doctor. That's like the slang for
Doctor.
For doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor.
Doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but what about you, Will?
Yeah, I landed here in this beautiful island back in '97.
Wow. That's way back, man.
Yeah, I met my wife in Tampa. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I got my bachelor's in at USF in Tampa. So I basically graduated and went to Florida. And after I graduated, I met my wife. She's from Curaçao. And we just, at that time I was working for Coca-Cola, doing cybersecurity and their networking. At that time, cybersecurity was not known, but now going back, it was a type of securing the network. I ended up traveling. We moved from Tampa to Miami, and then I ended up going 2 summers to Curaçao, and I really enjoyed it. I was very well welcomed by my wife's family, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, the family, open arms, and I saw the warmth of the Curaçao people as well, very friendly, and so I said, well, let's give it a shot, and I ended up with a job at IBM. IBM had a position at that time.
Doesn't exist anymore, right?
Huh?
Doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah?
They do have.
Because I remember that you guys had the building in front of Fatum.
Right, but before
Garden
that, they
Group.
were by UTS. UTS used to have an office back by where's that place back? It's kind of like hidden behind.
Brievengat.
Yeah, back
The
back
neighbor,
there.
right?
There
Oh,
was
yeah.
a building, an old building there, and then when IBM left,
Is it the one
UTS
or the
got it.
one next to Santa Maria? Mahuma.
no,
The neighbor,
no,
no.
Mahoma, no.
Brievengat. Yeah, okay.
But anyways, they moved from there and they went to the new building that they rented basically, where they built that building for IBM specifically. So I was there. I actually was in the old building and the new building, and I helped the security, networking security for most of the banks, the whole financial industry here in Curaçao, helping them secure. At that time, they were connecting to the internet, so you had a firewall and get on the internet and protect it and all. So I helped all of that set up, and I was very well connected with the financial, the offshore, a lot of offshore businesses, including Koiman, all their retail stores too as well. So I was, before I said, well, I'll come and see if I can stay 10 years. And then eventually my son got born. It was born in '99. So I said, okay, I'm going to hold off for at least, when I got married, you got to make a decision, right? What do you do? You go wherever your family is going to raise it, and your time frame changes. And I just say, it's not 2 or 3 years or 4 years, it's 10 years and then 10 years, kind of like that. But before I know it, it's 20 something years that I'm still here. And, but in that whole process, I ended up learning a lot about the financial markets and their connectivity and networking. And in 2008, there was a big recession. The whole market collapsed, and one of the jobs that got kind of like cut off was because IBM reports to Toronto, Canada, for the Caribbean region here, and my job was kind of like eliminated. I ended up working with Scarlett, connecting all the different base stations.
So you've been around.
Yeah, so I did like 45.
The whole island.
I used to drive to there's 45 base stations, which are, some of them are like rented from the antenna of UTS or Digicel.
Oh, wow.
I worked with Digicel for a little bit as a consultant as well. So I basically deployed, helped commission all those base stations with a group of team from Scarlett. So I learned also the wireless connectivity. So it was not only the networking connectivity and the protection there. Now we're talking about wireless connectivity between antennas and then eventually LTE, what we have today with all the phones. So I was very well understood that area, technical area.
Okay,
And-
quick question before we switch to the cryptocurrency subject. Do you have an estimation of when are we going to get the 5G connectivity through our phones
Yo,
here in Curaçao?
Yeah, so Scarlett was one of the pioneers here in the island providing what they call WiMAX, which is WiMAX is a test bed for a very wide version of Wi-Fi. So you think of Wi-Fi, it's 130 or 140 feet of of distance from the base station. And then WiMAX goes maybe 14 kilometers line of sight.
Wow.
13, 20. So at that time, that's what we were deploying. We were deploying WiMAX. But the problem was that the UTS, the Digicells, have LTE. LTE is a it's an older technology, has evolved throughout the years, and they have deployed through the whole world, basically. So the next evolution of LTE was 5G. Well, 4G, 3G, 4G, and then 5G.
Yeah.
So eventually, I think 5Gs will come here
1 2
sooner or
years.
later.
What's your estimate?
It's hard to say, but it's not like you're replacing the base station or you're replacing the antenna like we did with WiMAX. We actually had to put antennas. I had to drive. That's why he said, "Well, you know Curaçao." Yes, I do. I had to drive around with a I had a pickup
Your
with
pickup, yeah.
with a laptop and an antenna and a battery and a bunch, just driving around to do tests to see how, where's the signal. And then I would talk to the guys in the antenna and say, hey, you have to change the azimuth.
move a little bit
and
to the
move, 40 degrees, 30 degrees. Yeah. There's no coverage here. And
So you have to work for the money.
So, yeah. So,
So, a ideia de episode aqui a ananse não da propaganda, tá verdade. Mas tô pa minha Susana na mustache.
Okay.
Ando-
Bom propaganda.
Somehow we were talking about cryptocurrencies. And he was telling me that he is open for it, he's interested in it, pero ita mistrust un tiki ainda, ita tiki doubtful about it.
Yep.
Anto, segundo que estava naman aqui com 3 lunas passadas na ongeveer, more or less.
But yeah, 6
Anto-
months ago, yeah.
In a idea bini bam build un episode com ele kuta expert in cryptocurrency world. Anto meer Susana din sua perspectiva lo man challenge e idea de cryptocurrencies qual não estou familiarizado com ele, pero não estou nota informed properly ou não sou absorbe fully ainda. So não sei começar aqui.
Vamos começar.
What's a currency? Que é currency to official?
You want to take a hack of it?
well, before
that was yours.
yeah,
That was
it's
yours?
your turn, man. Give us the legacy version of currency.
To keep it simple, but then it is simple. Currency it's as we say in English, legal tender.
Okay.
It's backed by a government typically. It's backed by something that gives it value. Okay, so we have the florin. We all trust the florin. It's backed by
The dollar, right?
back to the dollar, I would say. But we believe in it because there's trust behind it. And jumping straight into crypto, I don't want to, I want to attack you a bit in the positive way. I think that's one of the issues we have with cryptocurrency. And like Boris said, Boris over the kosa ginanang anto. Not that I don't believe in crypto, pero mita hopi skeptical still about it. Pasobra, you hear more bad things about crypto, especially the last 2 weeks. It's.
Can you give us an example about it?
I don't know if you guys heard of Luna.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened to
Not the
Luna?
moon, but
Not the
crypto
moon.
course.
Yeah, it's a
Exactly.
crypto called Luna. What happened to it?
UST.
Yeah, USD.
Terra.
What happened to it? 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Do you know exactly how much
Yes.
of value was lost, or
Billions.
Yeah.
40 billions. It's the same as Madoff. The debacle with Madoff.
wow.
It's similar to that.
Wow.
So it's major. It's major. And then nobody's going to jail. The guy's actually
Was it a
deploy-
scam? Was it a scam?
Of course, the guy did Luna 2.0
Yeah,
or
he did Luna
2
2.0,
3 years ago.
Yeah.
He literally turned around and said, "Okay, we're going to recover all the money and we're going to make Luna 2.0. And here, give me the money so I
Yeah.
can give you back." Hello.
And people put
It's-
money, and
it's-
people are
it's a
putting
scam.
money
Yeah,
back
yeah.
into it.
Of course, yeah,
Yeah.
of course, it's It's a trading. I mean, it's like a poker table or a roulette table. You know, you lose, and all of a sudden the guy takes all the chips out and puts new chips in there. Spin the wheel again.
But I think the public probably is asking, okay, so you're skeptical about crypto. What is crypto about? What I want to clarify is that crypto right now, I believe there's $2.2 trillion in the crypto market.
In the crypto market, yeah, we're in the trillions. Yeah, that's
About-
right. Because
about
Bitcoin
2
was
weeks
close to 1 trillion a few
Only
months
Bitcoin.
ago. Only
Only
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
But the crypto community is way up there.
It's huge.
So you can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah, last time I checked, I think it was $2.2 trillion. It was 2.8 trillion a couple of weeks ago. So you know how much money disappeared.
And this is after 50% down.
Yeah. So it's a immense, huge industry, if you want to call it. But I think what we were talking about earlier before we came in here is that, and I want you to go a little bit in detail about that. I think the public, general public sees crypto as ban trade crypto. Basta, nami compra Shiba Inu, these other, si ban traseng. You know, and so, what we were talking about is actually crypto started with a reason behind it. Starting with Bitcoin, then you had Ethereum. You know, there's a system behind what we know as cryptocurrencies that are there to have a certain function. They're there to solve issues, solve problems, make things more efficient, make transactions faster, cheaper. So, ting value tras dinang, pero ting asina tanto dinang ku many of them are scams if you're not careful about it. No ku eta algo malo, pero ting asina tanto dinang, iba tin asina tanto kos mas malo ku kos bong. Labite kaya eta grade pa. We can talk about that today.
Yeah, so basically, you know, there a lot of this is back in 2017. You would talk about it's about blockchain, not about the Bitcoin, or not about the token. It's about the blockchain, and then very quickly you got to the point. And said, wait a second, blockchain is a very slow SQL database, and I don't know if you guys know what SQL database is, but SQL database is a centralized database that all transactions worldwide happen. It's just a centralized server. That's the most effective, efficient way to establish a transaction on your phone or whatever you do on the internet. It's a quick transaction. So blockchain came around and said, oh, well, blockchain is going to replace, all these systems. And the reality is, no, it's a very slow database. And there's some trade-offs. You want to make it fast, or you got to trust. See, that's the thing. When you want to make something fast, you have to trust a third party. Like MCB, they do it quickly. But if you have to decentralize and do a blockchain to have all these, there's a trade-off, and now you have to go slow, and then there's a price to pay for that, right? There's also privacy, there's securities, all these other issues that users don't even care or don't know, and there's behind the scenes. But going back to being skeptical, the way I joined, the way I found about Bitcoin was
Just pull the mic back closer to you.
the way I found about Bitcoin was basically I was looking how to secure the systems, whether they're the banking systems where I worked at IBM, all our customers. There's always the idea of what we call today Web 2.0, which is the 20th century kind of setup of how networks are done, which are basically there's a server, there's maybe the server's on the cloud, and we do transactions, and that needs to be protected. When you protect it in the data center, or like Mahoma has a tier 4 data center, it's very huge. That needs protection. So there's all these, your eggs in one place. You have to protect it, whether in the cloud or in the physical building, there's some protection. So I was always looking at how do you improve that? And not only that, but how do you protect against it? And the best way to do that is to find out how hackers and how attackers attack you. You go where the attackers are and see how they think, how they do their thing. So back in 2000, I was at the central bank at that time, 2000, maybe 7, 6, 7, 8, I was going into the dark web. I mean, even before that, I was going to the dark web. Dark web is meaning you go into the internet that is like the 90% of the internet. Because the internet is like split into a big iceberg. So 10% is above water, and 90% is underwater.
And then you have the deep web, right?
So Google, when you do a search in Google, you're only searching on that 10% out there.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So 90% is completely dark. You don't see that. And that darkness is always, you think, oh, darkness is bad, is evil, is the Satan is down there. Religiously, you start thinking it's horrible, right? But the reality is that the internet was formed like that universities actually connect that way. And they index themselves like a book. When you have a book, you have an index. And it just tells you what chapters are in the book. But if you don't have an index, or let's say you have 20 chapters, but you only index 10, the other 10 are unknown, right?
Yeah.
So that's exactly what the dark web is, basically. And it's good and bad.
But you were saying this was around 2006, 2007?
Right.
That Bitcoin or the blockchain?
Not yet.
Okay.
So this is I'm going in there because this is an interesting story, because it gets you into the reality of what we're going now is peanuts compared to what I went through back in 2011. So I was in the dark web, and I'm going through looking at how these, first of all, how to connect. Very simple. You just go out and
Trust software, right? I think.
Tor
exactly.
client.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
a Tor
yeah,
client.
yeah.
You run a Tor client, which is like a browser. Once you're there, you connect, and then you get to, there's no index, because remember, there's no index, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to blindly trust and find out, and scoot around and get into dead ends, and you find another area over here. Go into forums. And so that's another thing I was doing. I was going into different forums. So I got into the Bitcoin Talk forum back then. Bitcoin Talk. Before I got to the Bitcoin Talk, I went to in Tor, I found this website called the Silk Road. And the Silk Road was
Which is
eBay.
really famous, right? I know that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
This was an eBay of the dark web.
Yeah.
Wow.
Silk Road.
That's basically what it
Yeah.
is. So here I am in the dark web, and I created an account in the Silk Road, and I go. It's easy. You just go in there, you find it, and you put a password, you put an ID, an email, whatever. You can connect it, and then you're in there, and then you start. And the whole idea of the account is so that when you come back tomorrow, you can log in and get let's say your basket. If you put stuff in your basket to pay. Okay, great. What are you going to buy? Okay, well, I want to buy a shirt. I want a Rolex. Oh, a Rolex is 50 cents, $2. But it's a real Rolex or not? I don't know. It's a fake. It's the same thing as in New York. You go to New York, the street in New York, back in the day, you would see these guys with a bunch of watches on a table, and you didn't know if it was fake or not. You just knew it was
Probably.
It was $5, and give me a $5 Rolex, and when you put it on, it's like, wow, it looks like a Rolex, it feels like a Rolex, it must be a Rolex, and
Yep.
who cares? If you need to sell it, of course you go to a jeweler and he says, no, it's a fake Rolex, whatever. Anyways, so I found all these things, including drugs, paraphernalia, and you could categorize. You could say, I don't want drugs. I don't want to see drugs. I want to see retail stuff. But if you were buying ecstasy or cocaine or any of these drugs, they were all there for the buying. Even go further, you could buy a fake license,
but
any fake passport.
You were on Curaçao, right?
Yes.
Around that time.
Yes.
Is it possible to buy things from the dark web?
Yes.
From Curaçao?
That's what. So,
Whoa,
so
that's crazy, man.
yeah. So
That's-
I'm in there.
yeah.
This is eBay because I bought stuff on eBay. So how do you do it on eBay? How do you do it on Amazon back then?
Yeah.
Because Amazon and eBay were the contenders. And if not, you have to go to their website and buy it on. But it was with a credit card, and that's basically it. E-commerce
Or PayPal, right?
Or PayPal back
Yeah,
then. It was
yeah.
starting. So you had e-commerce was a hot topic here in 2000, 2001. It's like, oh, e-commerce is the biggest thing in the world. We're gonna have until today we have no e-commerce. Why? Because of payment. So here we are in the Silk Road. Going back to this. Okay, I want to add this, and then, of course, a Rolex, a shirt. I didn't want to drugs or anything like that. But it's like, wait a second. What if I do want to get drugs shipped to me? How do you do this? Because the shipping is how do you ship this stuff, right? You can ship a Rolex, but Duana customs are. So they had like a whole instruction book manual.
And how to do it.
How to do things. And obviously that's not on the dark web. That's on the real web. Go out there on YouTube, and there's all these videos that show you exactly how to do that.
Wow.
How to ship it. And they have examples about, for example, the UK. You could pick a neighbor that's not there for vacation. Put not the name of the owner. Not put your name on it. All these different things that you do, And if it fails, you do it again. You know, it's like if the police is watching you, they're gonna and they catch you. They even give you instructions. If they do catch you, this is what you're supposed to say. You say, I don't know who that guy is. I just came. You know, the guy called me and told me pick up the package.
So that detail.
All of that is down either video or detail, everything, the whole thing.
Wow.
Anyways, but this is still going on today, and because that site got shut down by the owner, which happened to be in San Francisco. That's that guy is in jail right now.
Silk Road? Okay.
Yeah. So the guy who made that site made a mistake by shipping a license, a fake ID to him, and he shipped it. And they found it in the custom between Canada and the U.S., Vancouver area, and they eventually traced it down to the data center. So he shipped it to the data center. So when the person gave it to him, and he had his picture there, that's how they arrested him. But anyway, that's how I found out about the ship.
He didn't.
I mean, you're eventually you're gonna make a mistake, and it's a shame because they made an example of this guy. He's in jail for 100 years. Wow. And he's a young guy like you guys, and he's
Appreciate it.
He's still on Twitter, you know, and we the community interact with him because you know he's trying to Ross Albright is his
So
name.
he was charged on.
He was charged for running an illicit website where they have paraphernalia and drugs and people for hire to kill and all that crap and this is your penalty. Boom, 100 years.
Wow.
Então, ainda estava para acabar com crypto?
So the next step, okay, so shipping part, I figure it out. Okay, great. Now they can ship it to my house or my neighbor or whatever, or ship it to a box, whatever.
My neighbor.
Yeah, and then he said, what is this? I don't know. It's for Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse. I don't know. I'll give it to me. I'll throw it away for you. You throw it away. Anyways, but that's basically how people do it till today. That's how they get away with all these. So the next step, okay, how do you pay for this? And there's no credit card because, of course, and no criminal is going to have a credit card.
Nope.
How do you pass cash, physical cash? So they hit Bitcoin. That's the only thing back then. It was Bitcoin. It's like, Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin? And that's when they take you into that. That's back in 2011. And I went to that rabbit hole, took me into that, phase that you skeptical because you don't realize what is this? Mm-hmm. How is this secured? How is this not another Ponzi scheme, another token? But this is an actual need. They needed a specific currency that was digital and that acted just like digital cash.
Wow.
So back in 2011, you have a marketplace. These are people who need to transact. And then they have to have a transaction. It's not Amazon tokens, because Amazon tokens is tied to the Fiat system. Mm-hmm. Or credit card system. But you cannot do that. It has to be digital cash. And the only thing there was Bitcoin. And
what was it like
back then? How did you buy a Bitcoin?
Yeah.
So then it's okay, where do I get this Bitcoin? So I had at that time I had a bank account. Obviously I have bank accounts because before I moved to Curaçao, I kept bank accounts in America. Mm-hmm. And or I could also wire transfer from here or my MCB account to the bank account in America. And there was this bank called Douala. And Douala was kind of like these new fintech banks today that allow you to have a transaction. And they were able to transact to a website called Mt. Gox in Japan. I mean, Mt. Gox was the exchange. And this is a place, because there's two ways to get Bitcoin. Until today, it is the same thing. You could do it meeting a person, or go to a website that get two people together, one that wants to buy and one that wants to sell. Mm-hmm. You go to a Starbucks, and that place was there, that market, that kind of place. They pointed you into that. That's how you do it. But the thing with that part is that I'm meeting a stranger in Starbucks here in Curaçao to get a Bitcoin. It's kind of like weird. I don't you don't feel comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sketchy.
But if you don't have a bank account, that's the only option. And people from Venezuela have the same problem. From Colombia, they have the same issue. They don't have banking, so they have to do it in person. And there's a huge market that get people together. They just meet on the web, and then they figure out how to make the exchange themselves.
It's still traceable to some point, right?
Not if you're meeting between two unknown people, and you agree on a place to meet. It's out in the street over there in the front, and we make you exchange the two things right there. So you show me your QR code, I'll give you the cash, and you're done. That transaction stays hidden, right? It's literally a cash transaction.
Okay.
There's no way to trace it. So that's one option. Then the other option would be, where is there an exchange where people could put fiat money, so fiat accounts or bank accounts,
Yep.
tie it. So your account now gets, say, $100 deposited in that account. And now you have $100 in your account. In this case, Mt. Gox was this exchange. So I put $100 in, $1,000 in. I do a wire transfer. Now wire transfer, it takes 3 or 4 days, 5 days. They charge you $25 here, $50 here, and then eventually you get the money there.
So that's similar to the exchanges we have today.
Correct,
Like
exactly,
the
the
Binance,
same
the Coinbase, and all these things.
But risk, like $100 like that, $1,000 like
Yes,
that.
yes. So I
Like I walk in with this skeptical about risk, like $1, $2, and even buying an app.
That's right. Okay,
I'm buying
exactly. And you don't trust it, right? But if you, when you the thing is that when I went down that rabbit hole and I saw the white paper, and you read that it's digital cash, and it's actually two things. It's a store of value over time. So it's like gold, digital gold, store of value over time.
Supposedly.
And it's been 13 years like that, and it's secured and it's decentralized. And you look at the decentralized part, and how is it decentralized, and how it was almost centralized, because you go back in time and we went through the times that I was biting my nails because it was too centralized, because China had most of the miners, and we knew that, and that got 2-3 years ago they kicked everybody out of China, which literally made more decentralized. Well, that was like the biggest foolish. History will dictate that China made the biggest blunder by kicking all the miners out of China. But anyways, so what happened was that at that time, these exchanges, you put the money in there. So I put $1,000 in there, transfer, and it's like I'm wire transferring to this unknown company, and hope for the best. But fuck it, I believe in this stuff. I read the white paper. I went under the hood. I was running a miner. I was doing stuff to run this technology, and I knew that it was based on security, cybersecurity, cyberpunk. This is 50 years in the making. This is not, it happened in 2008. There was a whole slew of network of people that had been working. It's like when you say, we are building stuff on the shoulders of giants. You know what that means? That, you got the giant and you're on the shoulders of these giants. They already created all that stuff. We just pick up where they left off and we continue creating.
Yeah.
So that's that's why I trusted that transfer over blindly. Say $1,000, go to MCOX. And I go in there, log into my account, and that day, that was supposed to be the transfer, I see my $1,000 in there. I say, great. Then I go in there, okay, put a bid, like a bid and offer in an exchange. Yeah. You put a bid and say, okay, who's willing to give me Bitcoins for $1,000? And at what price? And, so somebody is willing to sell me so many Bitcoins for $1,000.
How many did you buy?
Yeah, at that time it was maybe 14, 15 Bitcoins. I don't know, something like that.
Nice.
And but remember, I bought a shirt like that for 14 Bitcoins. I have a few shirts. Come on, man. A pizza was 30,000 Bitcoins back in 2000.
Com whole concept that que agora processar over the years dingen mundo acadêmico. So me imaginami meus coisas culturais também speculate about it. Você não tem tiki mais deep knowledge de com economics de com currency stipulado em outro banco, systems etc. Você não tem você intern conversations about it.
Well, actualmente boa que mundo de finance, vooral el mundo de investments, mundo bijvoorbeeld de currencies, tem ainda el mundo é hopi skeptical, pero tem hopi publications kuta papia de crypto, mas for de perspectiva de trading, como pode make money, mantra sen kune, mantra placa kune, pero mita kere ora bawa ki ko tawaru publica iPhone te ainda toch, tem hobby especulação, para sobre, me tá um voorbeeld. Se man passasse como presidente de Banco Central Europeu, se ali bisa que nota mira new value, then cryptocurrencies at all. Então, é buyback na inteira issue de intrinsic value. Então, agora nós vamos de intrinsic value. Me tá voorbeeld. Tiene dat bisa que Bitcoin tá gewoon tech stock. Like any other tech company, is no different. E o mundo for tradicional de finance bisabo, o valor de stock, por exemplo, está baseado pelo que está vende. Su serviço, lá que nós é Apple. Apple está vende telefone, está vende iPhone, computer, etc. So tem algo tangible there that you can derive value from. Como você saca valor for DJ. Que men nanta vende produto nang serviço nang ku nanta entrada cash flow pe de uma maneira ou outra você agora hopefully parem passar
sim
mi finance courses nang ku
seguro
como por value como tá value valor de algo bota valor é basar riba e cash flow que tá generar back como companhia então tem ainda toch tem no mundo acadêmico ku kiko eigenlijk e cryptocurrencies na kita generar nanta mais bonita que nós podemos nanta basar em blockchain que te ajuda a solve certain problems que o mundo tradicional sci-fi world that we call cannot solve. But at the end of the day, como botar add value? How do these com Bitcoin por exemplo tá trade agora na $30,000? Que está behind it? Então
Pero MS explica que you have to correct me if I'm wrong. But you said that you have to trust it, just like with nowadays fiat currency.
Right.
So, ba mencionar que ora nossa evolve para paper of a coins nang ta governo
backing
exato.
Correcto.
Avisa
Ta
nós
trust.
bastante good trust que essa que tá currency novo.
Leap of faith.
Yeah. So the thing with the part about why is it right now $30,000, $31,000 per Bitcoin? Just like why is the dollar so the need for dollars right now? Well, if you look at just the dollar is there because of the economic power of America, including the military, and what we call today the petrodollar, and that this basically initiated in 1971. Mm-hmm. When it was separated from gold. Gold being the backing of the dollar. So if you ask anybody, say what is that dollar or that peso or that bolivar or whatever is it backed by, what is it backing it up? Is it gold? There's gold in the vault that's linked to that paper that you have in your wallet. And there's a lot of people. I mean, I ask the same question to a lot of people, and they tell me, yeah, there is gold in the bank, and they're backing it up. And that's not true. Mm-hmm. That in 1971, by default, all of the gold got disconnected from the currency, so it became a commodity. And then you have to start. What categories would Bitcoin fill? Is it a commodity? Is it a currency? Is it a security? So most people don't have the clue because this is not being taught. If you're a scholar or a teacher, they teach you about finance and all these things, but what is sound money? What's the origination of money itself? How does it work? All those things that they're not being taught, not even in a university or college. So what Bitcoin is basically saying is that we're bringing that back, because like I mentioned before, Bitcoin is a store of value, so it stores value over time, but it has similar as gold or property. When you buy a house, you buy a piece of gold. You buy it, and it's not really currency; it's a commodity. It's a piece of gold that you keep under the mattress, and that stores your wealth. I mean, if you took any Indian out there from India, they love to have jewelry, gold jewelry, But that's how they save their earnings, their value. Because when you work, you create value, and you have to store that value somewhere. Yeah. That's in your bank account. That's in your cash, right? In your investments. But the Indians, they know how this has been messed up throughout generations. They love gold because they can store it there. So it's a store of value. That value, you worked, you store it, and then you wait a few years, and then you sell it, and you give it to the next generation, et cetera, et cetera. For that you move it into currency, commodity currency. So that's the first aspect. Now, back in the day, gold was also used as a currency. It could be exchanged. So people would go to the market with a bunch of coins, because before that, they would get to the market with 3 or 4 cows, and the other guy came with a bunch of bags of a bunch of sugar bags, and the guy comes over and says, "You know what? I'm giving you I give you 2 bags of sugar for half a cow." And the guy looks at, "Wait a second, what do you mean half a cow?"
Yeah.
And it's 6 o'clock. I have to go back down the river, the mountain, to bring up back to my village. Shit, I have to cut this cow in half. It doesn't work. So coins became currency. But then back in the 70s, it got to the point that gold was not feasible in terms of the transfer or the sellability. They call it the sellability over space. So now, when I send you a coin or a piece of gold, I have to consider the shipping cost, the energy that it takes me to give you that physical thing. And gold was just failing terribly. And back in the 60s, 50s, it was just not good. And Nixon knew that. And the whole administration back in the U.S. knew that they didn't have enough gold. If all of these countries came back and said, "Give me my gold," after World War II, they kept all the gold. "Give me the gold so I can." And so France was the first one. They brought a ship to New York and say, "Give me my gold." And the Fed said, "Okay, fine, we'll give you the gold because it's your gold, right?" And give you the gold. And then they're freaking out. So they went a few months later and say, "What do we do?" Okay, well, depeg it. Don't link it to the dollar, because the people had the dollars thinking that's a receipt for my gold. So in 71, he went on TV and said, "No, it's not linked anymore. It's gone."
Yep.
So from that point,
I have to
all
read
the
about
countries,
that. It's really interesting.
all the countries became fiat at that moment. That's what the fiat term comes from.
Came about, but I have a question for you. So, you refer to Bitcoin as a store of value, which is one of the, I guess, ¿cómo te dice palabra? Razonan para usaseng. One of the
Incentives?
incentives, or one of the
Benefits
of money. How do you explain Bitcoin being a medium of exchange?
So that's the next term. So perfect question, because it leads me to the next part. So it's value. It's a store of value over time. That's not a transaction, because you could do one transaction and wait for 10 years and do another transaction. That's it. You could do it with silver too. Same idea. But if you really want to do a transaction, so go to the market and exchange these monies back and forth, the best one was the actual physical paper. So that's what cash is. That's what currency is. Currency is extremely it solved that problem of salability, what they call salability over space. So now over space, I'm giving you a piece of paper. That's easier to transfer than a bunch of coins. And then you take that even further, because now you have these SQL databases, these centralized databases, where I just have accounts. Your account, my account. And then that's what happened. That's what we're doing today. When I transfer $1 million, or the Fed sends so many billions to that bank or this bank, or they're not literally sending bags of paper. No, they're just changing account numbers and balances. And that's it. So these ledgers are being kept by all these banks. So MCB has a ledger, which has all the accounts of MCB, of Banco de Caribe, on everybody's account. And whenever there's a transaction, they basically take credit here, debit here, and you have a database over here, and they trust each other, and they audit these things every year. You pay a bunch of money for these auditors to make sure that but we know that those things fail. There's all these debacles. There's all these misunderstandings. In those ledgers, they get messed up. So when you talk about how do you exchange, to transfer from one individual to another that's better than that paper or those accounts, that's where Bitcoin comes in. Because now within 10 minutes, which is the confirmation between the miners to confirm that these ledgers are valid. Now, think of it at all the banks. Imagine that all the banks, instead of having their individual bank ledgers, that when I make a debit here or credit here, it happens like that. Now you have this ledger that is reflective on the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain. that everybody can take a look at the blockchain and say, oh, this transaction happened instantaneously within those 10 minutes. And it actually happened. And there's no dispute. You cannot debate whether, oh, you missed 50 cents over here. No, it's what that's like a ledger of truth. The truth is right there in front of you.
Pero un banco por in the future simply adapt that system and
Exactly. That basically, it's the idea.
It's possible, but but er is uma pergunta sobre bota wak na país na mas chiquito maneira Curaçao. Ora bo papia também tem sector nang minota mira I don't see the urgency to jump into things like that yet or right away. E nada me interessa me pergunta, passou boti público iPhone anku tá interessado em tópico. Pa hopi in de phone anku mita papi kune estudiante nang tambe, tingo mas tanto estudiante ta hopi skeptical mita purba bring up these ideas with them in my finance courses quite often. Manante ke dawa mitimbe I don't understand this thing. Mita querer é maneira que pode ser eta aqui quando está em cada outro parte técnico é difícil para compreender. It's very hard to understand these things. My question then is, why switch to that system if this system works fine?
Perfect. Exactly.
That's what you keep hearing out there. Okay, why do I need to go understand this complicated crap?
Well, who are you hearing this from?
Crap.
From the banks.
And where are these countries? Because if you look at Cuba, Venezuela, El Salvador, Central Africa, all of these are unbanked, banks that are completely broken.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And it works.
This is a good system for them. I'm not going to.
No. But go back to your answer. Is that we are privileged here in Curaçao and America and Europe and Asia that we have a banking system that works.
Yes.
It's been years and years in the making, but it's an elite system that we all privileged are able to use.
But when you say it's an elite system that we're privileged to use, I look at the Bitcoin system as well. I look at blockchain in general. You're the expert. I'm a novice with blockchain. I started learning about blockchain maybe like 4 years ago. But I could also call that sector, that industry, also an elite sector.
Right.
Because, in academia, we have this thing when we publish, and when I publish, I try to keep things very simple. Because the issue we have in academia is that we publish so many different things on a level nobody understands, so nobody reads them. Well, some people read them. I shouldn't say nobody reads them. But I think, the same way as in academia and this world of blockchain and Bitcoin, you have this belief and understanding, the elite nangatrobe, the grupito 8. And then I saw, how do you...
That's right. And that, the simplest answer to that is price. Price is understood by even the most uneducated person in the world and the most ignorant person in the world will understand price. And the establishment of understanding what's the value of whatever we're exchanging is price. So when price is distorted or changed, obscured, you don't have access to the right price, you're in a disadvantage. So what happens is that these countries that that have these technologies, that the elites have the technology or the urgency from the IMF, for example, is to hide that complexity. Just provide them with a system that works. Whether they can transfer and do their value transfer between individuals at any country level. If they need a new loan for a country to develop, certain social programs or something like that, that's their job. That's what they want to. Forget about the complexities behind it. Mm-hmm. So Bitcoin is the same exact thing. So in the case of, I'm giving you an example of El Salvador. El Salvador, Bukele is the president there. Mm-hmm. So Bukele decided to introduce Bitcoin as a legal tender to the country. Mm-hmm. He also said it's going to be on parallel legal tender with the U.S. dollar, because that's been like that in El Salvador. Yeah. They have both. So he basically passed the law, and he has a majority, so he can pull this off. And he basically says it's legal tender. You can use Bitcoin to pay for services. You eventually going to be able to accept. Every merchant can accept transactions in Bitcoin or dollars. You have the option. So he made it very well, clear. And there's some negative parts about that, how he introduced it, et cetera, et cetera. But the point is that by him doing that part, that very simple part, he basically removes the complexity out of it. And I'll tell you how that's done.
Oh, yeah, I was about to ask you how so.
Because if you see these people, they have to learn the internet, and they have to learn an app on a phone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are things that are already happening. Whether it's Bitcoin or the standard Fiat system, or that you're going to have an app, it's the same thing. So we can agree that that's a complexity that we both sides have,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to, then you say, okay, let's take away the more complexity out of it. Let's take the Bitcoin complexity out of it. They're used to the Bolivar, or in Panama they have the
Balboa.
the Balboa,
Balboa,
So the people, the local people understand that local currency.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of El Salvador, it's the US dollar. They know
I
the
think
US
they
dollar.
do not understand it. They are used to it.
Right, but to make a transaction, you buy
That's a good point.
Yeah,
when,
right.
when you need to
And then-
transact, you need to use a currency that's local
Mm-hmm.
to both parties. And if it's the dollar, in case of El Salvador, and it's legal tender, that's what you use.
Exactly.
So whether the point is they don't care about what's happening in the Fed, what happens in America, what's happening with the wars in Iraq. They don't care about that. They just care about making sure that they can transact that transaction
Exactly.
and what's used at that moment.
I want to know Edirel's opinions about this. Ora nós não tem currency, tipo papel of coins, só tem gold, toch? Toen der tijd. Então depois ela cambia para papel que, hey, you have to trust it.
Yeah, tem value based on that
Exato.
trust. Yeah.
Então, hoje em dia, nós assim, DJ na escola, universidade, etc, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Que você pensa se nós começar a apply the knowledge about cryptocurrency and to hang less about it na escola para começar a get used to it and to get the complexity of it out of the way.
Net met bij visa, que você is the boat. Você passa um diki bio, anto.
Nós temos de
Ele é uma você não, mas você bio. Bastante mais experiência.
Pagamos o mic, pagamos o mic.
Nou, die komt te bieden zeggen sobre boso tempo, que você a passa se cá na Universidade de Curaçao. Crypto não estava that trendy yet. Anto kiko boso ahaya mas tanto, lo qual buki ng traditional di finance tem that contabo ta how do you raise capital, bonds, stocks, the typical ways of coming up with capital, como genera capital. Lo que me está haciendo de mi vac na Universidade de Curaçao es nango que bin Universidade de Curaçao ku ta en finance que mina.
Botar um cripto seca Edirel.
Kita nabun Shiba Inu. With a 0.00001 baina. Man.
You're rich.
No, yes, I have a lot of Shibas. Worth nothing. Pero kiko mi está haciendo de mi vac nang. Mi está incluyéndose en capa.
Nice.
Boso ko pasa se camina é science level, tá tem três componentes, corpo 2, então de três tá investments, assim a trade em mi classe, que bem. Que mais tem corporate finance 2, tem programa que nós na universidade, agora aqui na e mi tá se também tem finance and control com um applied science programa. Mi saco mi tem um book que mi tem cover, pero mi tem hincando tópico nang di blockchain na ding. Tem com certo extent. Because I don't consider myself a, expert in the area. But not only blockchain, but also the different type of cryptocurrencies. What does the academic world state about it? So tiene que ta pro e tiene que ta contra. Mi popula original via Google Scholar, 20 artículos, 10 ta bisabu pro, 10 against. Kaya kiko mi ta base ta haciendo, esa aqui também ta algo que mi no que mire na universidade só. Ja, nós cinco começamos a incorporar coisas aqui também, hasta na nível elementário, ou escola básico, que quando temos escola básico hoje em dia,
Fundeshi.
escola de fundeshi, escola secundário, não me este word incorporar, so o mundo está cambiando, whether you trust or not blockchain and you trust crypto or not, or Bitcoin, you don't like it or you do, it's more and more being adopted as we move forward. Então, você aqui que está when you talk to students at the university level, they're not comfortable about it. They are very quickly to tell you, it's risky. I don't trust this.
I think it's because they don't have a lot of
they
information.
don't know about it. They don't know about it. But tem completamente razão. Nang no sabi je. Anto, sorry me to plug in financial literacy.
No, dalbay.
Pero financial literacy manenos, pesnan ko no sa aki ko financial literacy ta gewoon manero ta literal que por lesa. Financial literacy ta kubat yung conocimiento básico de finanzas, de SENG, de budgeting, de investments, ku po ayudar tu ma mio decisione nel futuro, ya? Timan diferente manera para teste, tem pari quiz que vou teste, pero a mim não te quer quiz tá good beginning para mucha ta of estudante, of ende adulto, anybody. Para botar uma ng knowledge tanto para botar com esse ento aqui como tenho focus riba che. Pero me te quer focus agora que também tenho bira, não somente knowledge, pero também behavior. Então, como está afetando behavior, é hobby difícil. Mas, eu quero para começar a chegar na behavior, para começar na knowledge, para começar a dar informação aí, para mais e mais não é dado opinião, hobby não vira mais confortável. Então, eu eventualmente tornei a universidade, coisa na que nota, pois a minha papel dinang, of mino sa dinang.
Exacto.
Pero, eu quero hobby cause, maneva ka bibisa Manuel, ku eta marana exposure. Se não expose coisa na aqui demo sistema educacional na idade young. Generación nunca nota cambia. You know, just to give you an example, I have a class I teach as an investment course. I teach it at the science level and applied science level at the university. And I have kids trade. They trade stocks, bonds, mutual funds. I let them trade whatever they want. I tell them speculate if you want to, just for them to get a feeling for how it works. And I have 3 kids. One of them, the middle one is 12, Lucas. Hey, Lucas, if you watch this.
Lucas. No, Lucas.
Lucas is 12. So last year, when my students, university students trade, I also tell Lucas to trade with them. And I think the class I taught this semester, I think trading ended last night. I think Lucas beat everybody. He had a few trades, and he traded in crypto. Which
it's critical.
Which pisses me off a bit. Because we do talk about it, but he told me that I just speculated, here and there, but it's not about the speculation and anything else, but it's exposing a kid that young to these things that will make him more of an aware individual in that respect in the future. And no sigo kumisasa ko nakimasanto.
I want to bring a question and put it on the table. Question is, how can we solve the misinformation that we have nowadays on Curaçao about cryptocurrencies? How can we not fall in a scam?
Yeah, so
that's in general.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that I've been trying to organize that type of education since 2014. So right after my beginnings and in going down that rabbit hole and understanding all stuff, I started a Bitcoin meetup. It was back in 2014. First meetup was 2 or 3 people. Then the second meetup was just me, myself, and I in a bar. And I took a picture, a selfie. Hey, we're here waiting for you guys. We're having great fun. It was just me and the bartender. So every month I had this meetup. And we had different topics, whether it's trading, the difference between trading, because talk about trading, but there's also the other side, where what is money and savings and currencies and commodities and all these other things. So all of these things are you can differentiate. You can't put them all in one category.
Do you have this event once a month?
Once a month. So once a month.
Where and
yeah. So if you go to a Bitcoin meetup Curaçao.
On Facebook?
No, it's not Facebook. Meetup. It's a company that organizes meetups worldwide, and that's actually how the early conferences of Bitcoin, they started like that. The very early conferences around the world started with those type of Bitcoin. That's how I started, because I saw these other in Singapore and in Miami and all these places, and I said, let me use the same platform, because it's kind of like free. You have to eventually pay like $12 a year. And then you become like an administrator, and you administrate. So you subscribe, and then You announce a meetup and you say the place where it's going to be, what's the topic, and then you register. And when any changes that happen, like for example, the location changes or the time changes, all the members will get a notification, the email, stuff like that. That's how it works. And these evolved in San Francisco. You got one that started with 100 people, and now there's 1,000 people in those meetups. And so here, I started to do that. Then went to different places, a restaurant. Eventually, I did a Triangle, which is Hotel Banda.
Okay.
So I did a lot of them there. I did them in resorts as well. So you pick a place, but the Triangle has been the most consistent one. And you take a different topic. So you pick a different blockchain. At that time, it was a different token. Different, I would look at, Bitcoin solves the proof of work. It uses the store of value. And then you have Lightning, which is the payment system on top of Bitcoin, which solves the credit card, because that was a big issue back in the payment, because Bitcoin is every 10 minutes you have a confirmation. So like for example, you go to Centrum and you pass your maestro, you immediately get a confirmation, yes or no.
Yep.
You good for the money or you're not. And that's because the third party, the MCB, will put a stamp on it. Say,
They do the checking and make sure.
Yeah, that's behind the scenes. And you have to pay for that. The merchant usually pays for that, and they pass it along with the prices of the product. Right. So that's instantaneous kind of payment. It's not really instantaneous because the settlement doesn't happen until at the end of the day, etc. But to the customer, it feels instantaneous. And it's like, why do I need Bitcoin when I'm going to buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin? It takes 10 minutes. Because then the merchant has to take the risk.
Oh yeah, that's.
I'll give you the cup of coffee, but I have to wait 10 minutes. So you can't be waiting in the line 10 minutes. I can't do business like that. So I'll give you the coffee, hoping that there is no fraud or anything. Because that's what happened. Within those 10 minutes, it guarantees that the transaction will never be reversed.
But it brings back the point of trust.
Right. So there's that trust within that 10 minutes.
Yep.
But that's
if
money in general, right?
Yeah, but if you're buying a house, how long does it take to sign titles, get the notary in place? It's more than 10 minutes.
Yeah,
it could be a 3 weeks before you get your keys to get in your house.
Yeah, I went through.
So I don't mind waiting 10, 20, 30, 1 hour for confirmations. Remember, every confirmation makes it even more permanent.
Yeah.
It's like written in stone. That's my house. It's not yours anymore.
But to add to what you're saying, if you do business overseas, I do have a small business where I deal with a lot of clients outside of Curaçao, and typically in the industry I work in, you get paid through PayPal or you have to wait for a wire transfer, and I don't like wire transfers, but majority of them they do pay through that system.
Correct. Yeah.
And sometimes it's like 3 to 5 days.
That's right.
And you need the money.
And I think in that capacity,
But why does that happen? Is it because they pay in a different cryptocurrency or?
No.
Okay,
He's talking about wire transfer.
just wire transfer.
Oh, wire transfer.
Just basic wire transfer.
I thought cryptocurrency.
No. Crypto is, if it's Bitcoin, it's 10 minutes.
Yeah. That's why I want to bring that up, because not that I am against Bitcoin or certain, I say certain cryptocurrencies, because we talked earlier about that. There are many out there that have they call it in the industry use case. Some of these cryptocurrencies, they have some very interesting projects behind them that help solve
identity, for example. It's completely different.
Yeah.
That has to do with finance. And you have these solutions for that as well. But to go back to the payments, the payment part, 10 minutes works for a house, works for a long wire better than wire transfer, but you will never be able to compete against Visa and MasterCard. 20, 30,000 transactions per second.
Yep.
That's how fast a SQL database can do these things. So you can't Bitcoin is a slow database. 10 minutes, impossible. So Bitcoin back in the day, 2014, 15, the community said, okay, well, we'll figure a solution for this. So they came up with what they call layer 2 solutions. So now you have layers on top of layer. Now, if you go back in history, all these internet connectivity, we're doing this podcast with the internet, basically. We have a connection, Wi-Fi, to get into the internet. How is that connection? Goes into UTS, Digicel, whatever. And there's all these protocols. The users don't have no clue what's going on behind the scenes. But there's these layer protocols that have been set up. It's called the OSI model. That when a transaction, like internet transaction goes through, it happens through these layer systems. So when you go on a browser, for example, you go to Google and you type in Google and you start browsing, that's layer 7. You have no clue what's happening behind the scenes until it goes all the way to the server in Google and the other website and the other side.
I don't even care.
You don't care. That's complete. To you, it's just give me Google, give me the index, and that's it. Onto the scenes. So in crypto, we've come up with ideas. Okay, we have to adopt some kind of layered technology on top of, in this case, Bitcoin. So we say Bitcoin is solid. It's like the foundation. Mm-hmm. It's the truth. It's never going to change. It's impossible to destroy. We have it in satellites around the world. You know, the Bitcoin blockchain is in satellites traveling around the globe right now. So you can connect. You can be in the middle of the desert if you have a solar battery.
Oh, that's a good question. I have a question for that. What if tomorrow we don't have an internet connection?
That's exactly the answer. So let's say there's an apocalypse. There's a huge explosion, and it eliminates humanity. The least of your worries are going to be able to transfer electronically, because that's not going to happen. You're going to go back to barter. It's going to go back to civil.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But these satellites are still around the earth. And what do these satellites have? They have a copy of that blockchain. So let's say that blockchain, in other words, that ledgers that the banks have, of establishing the civilized transactions between humans, it's all in all these banks. And let's say we move from banks. We're smart enough to move away from these stupid legacy system, 20th century technology, and we move into 21st century, distributed ledgers that are, or whether they're Bitcoin or not, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's distributed. We're moving. It's going to be managed and computed by artificial intelligence. We have to accept that. That's a different conversation. Yeah. Humans are biologically limited to what they can do.
Yep.
Eventually, artificial intelligence will take humanity to a different level. But besides that, the Bitcoin blockchain has all these transactions in the future. Let's say we have everything gets layered in Bitcoin. And maybe Ethereum will also be there. It's in the satellite. And there's an apocalypse. The whole world is destroyed. But we have somehow the civilization starts to bloom. But
it'll take a couple of hundred of years, right?
Okay, let's not make it that drastic.
Then by the time that happens,
well, the point is,
satellites are not
the point is that we have a few people that say, we can't kill humanity completely. We have to go back to who owns which home? Who owns what? Who has the wealth? Okay, where's those ledgers? They're all blown up. Oh, we have the ones on the satellites. So and we connect again, we download it again, and now with Starlink, which is all these satellites that connect you with internet, you can download the whole blockchain from one of these satellites almost within hours. You get the whole blockchain, it's about 235 gigabytes. You put it back on your old laptop that you took out of that survived the apocalypse or whatever. You download it again, and there you got everybody in the village now can, that's my balance. Like, okay, let's start transacting. And you get back your wealth. Tell that to a Cuban that leaves Cuba with a few diamonds in his stomach to start a new life in Miami or Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Now you just have to memorize 24 words. And you can pass through any border. And that's the other next question.
Yeah. Make sure you write those words down.
And it could be split. I give you 3 words, I give you 2 words. You give 1 word to your child, and we all meet up and what's your 3 words? Okay, 3 words. Okay, now we get our wealth back. We can start our life again.
I know plenty of people that have gone through that process of creating a wallet, and it's
getting easier and easier. It's complicated, but it gets easier and easier. Yeah. And it becomes like I work with a fund that's their whole sole purpose. How do we make sure that we can survive the worst case scenario in which most of our founders, most of our top management gets destroyed or
So, but do you say then,
there's mechanisms in place to do this. It's not impossible. It's easy to do.
Do you say then like something like Bitcoin or Ethereum? This is the reason why they derive their value, like because
correct.
If anything happens, they are there, or
you're transacting something. You have to. It goes back to trust. Mm-hmm. If you can trust a third party, if I can trust IBM for the next 1,000 years versus trusting an artificial intelligence software that's distributed, decentralized, and will exist under any worst case scenario. Which one do you think is going to survive 1,000 years? IBM or that? And to me, I put my money on that. And then the next step is, what's the risk of saying zero? It's not going to happen. IBM will be the future. Versus, you know what? I'm going to put 1%. If IBM is the future, I lost 1%. If IBM is not the future, then I survive. So what's the risk? 1% is more, to me, zero is more risk. Having zero in crypto or zero in Bitcoin, it's a huge risk for not only yourself or your family and your next generation. You're neglecting the next generations, their future. And we go back to the other part, which is this generation now, you guys, right, the millennials and the Gen Zs and all these, you guys are in the front lines. You guys are in front. What's
your advice? Yeah.
You're the fourth. Advice? You're the fourth. It's a fourth turning. There's a book called The Fourth Turning. Very good read. I'll put it in the notes. Maybe you can put it in the podcast. Good. And that book basically talks about 4 different turnings, generations. So the last fourth turning, so it happens fourth. So we're in the fourth one. The last fourth was World War I, World War II. Those heroes, those are the heroes of World War II. So now we're not at war. We're in the fourth generation. But you guys are in the front lines. You have been given these deck of cards in poker, a hand that sucks, but you have a wild card. And the wild card is Bitcoin, proof of work, maybe Ethereum. So that's your wild card. But before, you didn't have most all the generations had all these great cards in their deck, but they abused it. They took your debt and they paid themselves. All those baby boomers, they're swimming in all that wealth, which is not theirs. It's their debt of their children.
But I have a question for everybody here. I have a question for especially the two of you.
Last question. We have only 5 minutes.
Hopefully, you guys are you're saving to have something later on, like a retirement. You're working right now. I'm assuming you have a retirement plan, or
Wapu podcast,
which is good. Value.
Are you guys investing though?
Yes, we are.
We try to diversify as much as we can.
Okay, good.
I risk a lot.
Let's say you decide to buy a pension plan, and they tell you, okay, 30% of the portfolio, your money, we're going to put it in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Would you go for that?
I will go for only Bitcoin.
Okay.
I'd do it myself. Why would I? I'll do it myself. Why would I do that? I don't even have the money to think about putting money in a pension fund or something like that.
So you don't want a pension fund?
I don't think about it.
So you don't invest are you thinking about investing in
at this point in my life, I think about saving some money and then see what kind of business.
Okay, so you're more thinking about investing in businesses, specific businesses.
And then if it's about cryptocurrency, I would rather do it myself than.
Okay, I'll flip that question upside down.
Yeah.
So he gave you an option of a product, a service from the financial market.
Yeah. But I can do it myself.
Right. Exactly. You're in the middle of Africa. You're in the middle of Argentina, where these products are failing left and right. Especially the currency evaluation of Argentina, for example, failed like 5, 6, 7 times in the history of the country. So you have the option, just like the guy in Argentina or the guy in the middle of Africa with a bunch of sheep, and he has connectivity to the internet. Because he has a tower nearby where he can power his phone, that he does it on a village in a battery, right? You do the same thing because you go to UTS and you connect. You got 5G, or hopefully we'll get 5G soon enough, right? Yeah. So you have your own personal bank that you can do that same pension. He said Bitcoin, you could say Ethereum. You could eventually have a product that being served on that, like Robinhood, for example, is one of the apps that's out there where you can buy stock right there.
Yep.
Cash App. Strike is another one. People in El Salvador are able to exchange money remittance back and forth from El Salvador to all the El Salvadorians in the U.S. Same thing with Argentina.
It's a big community
there.
So
you're doing that from, you are your own bank. whether that phone is half bank, centralized with the like MCB, and the other half is 24 words to represent the Bitcoin or the Ethereum. And if that bank behaves bad, like MCB behaves back, or Robinhood behaves bad and takes all your money because of the politicians or whatever, you still have 24 words you memorize. And you go to another wallet like Blue Wallet or Moon Wallet, and you restore those 24 words, and there you are, your Bitcoins again.
But you know what? You know why I brought that up? Because you live in a community, that's what you hear. Go find a job that gives you a pension. At least my generation, that's how we came up. This is what you do. Yeah. And that's why I think the investment concept in Curaçao is not something that is really discussed or talked about, because we live in a system where that is done for you already by a third party. But you guys are a generation, I ask you on purpose, because you're a generation that's telling me, no, I can do it on my own, I have my other things I do. The older generation didn't think that way.
I think it's because of, among others, globalization and free access and how fast you can access to information.
Yeah. So you have in the community, in a lot of communities, including ours, you have this clash of this is how we did it always, and things are changing. So I think it's a beautiful opportunity to actually see how you mesh those things together, because at the end of the day, things
will change.
No, things are changing. It's not that they will change. Sure. They will continue to change very drastically in front of our eyes. I'm 45. But you guys are a bit younger than me.
23.
So you're going to probably see things that are very much different than what I saw at your age. Yeah. But I like that point you brought up, though. We, as a community, we need to bring things. We need to work at changing that mentality. And
but
on
a positive note is the what Bitcoin brought to innovation. I see it as what the printing press brought back in the day, and what the gunpowder did back in the day.
Yeah.
The printing press gave information to the individuals.
Yep.
The gunpowder gave power to the individuals to defend against the knight in the shining armor. So these are innovations that happen once in generations. And Bitcoin is that type of change.
One limitation less to worry about.
Hmm?
One limitation less to worry about.
Hey,
well, that gives you.
We have no more time, man.
It's an opportunity.
We have to close it here.
It's the opportunities.
We need part 2, man.
Yeah. Part 2 is coming soon for sure.
That's great. Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate
Next
it.
week, maybe?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, I'm available.
I'm available anytime.
Some beers, some snacks.
Yes.
Yeah,
To
perfect.
make it happen. Danke bate de nos atrobe. Riba já domingo, à noite,
Sabroso.
Kora like nos sa riba Facebook, follow nos riba Instagram também. Subscribe na Boman Rex. Uta ayabanda na. Comment ibaw quanto Bitcoin botin, quanto Bitcoin bota querer, de real thing, quanto Bitcoin me jave club ginanting. Besides that, Kora usa Kiko?
Da bisa
Dalo, bisa tu kos.
Agora usa nos plataforma é a plataforma de digital qual tá go out com Play Go, totalmente grátis, não tô com uma data.
Se você tem um podcast, você tem data.
Agora nós vai estar na Holanda voor die 22 juli tot 7 de augustus, ongeveer. Se você expose o business, se você recomendar alguém de botar de Wapu podcast, lá nossa
Comment ibao.
Tag riba Facebook, DM nos over suggestions.
Então se você take care de currency ibao, valuable currency ibao, usa o code de Wapu, ribamanscape.com. Uta Wapu, code Wapu, botar 20% de desconto. So that's it.
Bota lagi chulo.
Hey. Thank you for nosso trobe, nosso abos ang outro simang. Tokara bom.
Stay Wapu.
Stay Wapu.
Stay Wapu.
Stay Wapu.
Hey.
Oh